Good evening, everybody. I'm back again with Christ and comic books. So, I'm looking to do something a little different. I want to kind of talk about the Batman family. I know you guys haven't heard from me in a while, but hopefully I can, one, talk about them a little bit clearly. I'm actually surprised from the research that I've done on the Bat family to find out that there's so many people involved in the family. And so it's outside of, the Robins that we all know and love, the maybe one or two Batgirls that some of you may even know of, and other characters even outside of that. The Bat family has grown large. And for some of you that don't know what I'm talking about Batman and those he takes in to be his sidekick, or he's training up to be to assist with covering for Gotham. That's what I mean when I'm talking about the Bat family. So, of course, there's already Batman, but let's start by acknowledging the actual members of the family. I might not go into detail about all of them, but the ones that are mostly known are the ones that I'll actually kind of clarify on. So, let's start off with the number one, and that's, at least in my opinion, Dick Grayson, otherwise known as the first Robin, who later grows up to become known as Nightwing. He was the first Robin to be a part of Batman's family. He was the one that, when he was a kid, he was trained in gymnastics, basically, because his family was a part of a circus. But his family, the Graysons, ended up getting killed off during their special trapeze performance, and so Batman took this person in. We're going to identify some of the similarities, by the way, as to what leads to Batman actually taking some of these people in, but we'll double back to that. So Batman takes in Dick Grayson. He begins to train Dick Grayson, teaching him martial arts, teaching him how to be a detective, and not only doing that, he starts to provide for him. So that's another aspect that I think is very important. He starts to do a lot of the providing for him, teaching him how to grow up and be an actual man. So that's something very important to look at when we're talking about the Bat family. It's not about making people into, heroes. It's not about teaching people how to beat bad guys up and get them put in jail. He's not making police officers. He's not making a team of soldiers. He's building an actual family. He's building relationships with these young people that he's developing, that he's encouraging. So the first one being Dick Grayson. He was one of the most prominent ones. When I say prominent, as in taking in the abilities that Batman was teaching him, receiving everything that Batman was giving him. They, of course, had their fallouts here and there because, at some point, Dick Grayson wanted to become his own. That's why he never wanted to be able to take up the Batman mantle. He wanted to lead into what we know now as the Nightwing mantle, which actually stems from something else. I can't remember where it stems from. I think it is someone from an alien race of some sort that he had heard of, is where he took the name from. So that's where you get the first Robin. The second Robin that'll lead into is a bit different, and his name was Jason Todd. Jason Todd was a rather self-destructive young kid. You could probably look at that as being someone that Bruce, if he hadn't taken in that desire to overcome his fears, would have ended up becoming just some street punk causing trouble, or even some, in his case, being that he was wealthy, some rich guy that was ending up causing trouble along his way. So that's something that he took from noticing Jason Todd, and in him seeing Jason Todd, he took him in as well. He was very quick to steal and to rob people and do a little bit of violence here and there, but Batman took him in. Batman used his his skills and his abilities to his advantage, teaching him how to harness those for the good of mankind, for the good of Gotham, to help people, right? So he got him in the mindset of, instead of using my skills to do harm or to take away from people, using my abilities to be able to give back to my community, basically. That's one of the very valuable things about that lesson between Batman and Jason Todd, is he got him to think about the value of his community and doing right by them. The interesting thing about him is he's probably one of the most popular of the Bat family, because he was the one that ended up dying at the hands of Joker. Joker got his hands on him, kidnapped him, and beat him with a crowbar, and that ended with the building that they were in exploding, and so Jason Todd ended up being killed off. The interesting thing about Jason Todd is he was bathed in the Lazarus pits, which this is something separate from Ra's al Ghul, who is one of the enemies of Batman, who is quote-unquote immortal because he bathes in that pit. It keeps him alive, so injuries don't end up killing him off. So after he died, he was bathed in the pit and brought back, and he ended up coming back as the Red Hood. So he ends up being a part of the Bat family as the Red Hood, not necessarily one that is 100% in the same at the same eyesight as Batman, but he's one that's willing to actually kill villains off. He thinks that's the best way because, like I said, from what he experienced with the Joker, had Batman already killed off the Joker, this wouldn't have even happened to me. Even more so, all the lives that Joker has taken wouldn't have been lost. And on the grand scheme of things, all the lives of all the people that the villains that Batman won't kill off would not have been lost had Batman done those things. So that's where they draw a line and they come to a disagreement, but they otherwise have been working together since then. There's even a storyline where there was confliction over who would be able to take over the Batman mantle, and he was one of the ones that, as much as he didn't think himself worthy, he did, and he ended up getting a severe injury and having to fall out of that. But that's Jason Todd. Let's shift into Tim Drake. Tim Drake is the third Robin. Now, the thing about Tim Drake is he comes from a rich family, and although he was rich, he was very observant. So he basically, figured out who Batman actually was. He figured out who Bruce Wayne actually was, and he ended up getting into the business of being a Robin. So he got taken in by Batman, trained up by Batman. Now, although he did, of course, pay attention, learn the martial arts aspect, learning how to fight, he was a very smart young man. With him being smart, he took in the detective aspect of being a part of the Bat family. He became very knowledgeable of how to solve those cases, as well as his technological abilities are very, very advanced. And overall, from the DC Comics aspect, he is discerned as the best person to take over the Batman mantle from that aspect solely, because he is the smartest one of any of the Batmans or even the Batwomen that have come into the role. So that is Tim Drake. He also got to a point where he wanted his own mantle, and he became known as Red Robin. So that's where you see, he's developing these people to become, sidekicks and leading to them becoming their very own. So that's something very important, right? So we went from Robin to Nightwing, Robin to Red Hood, Robin to Red Robin. So that we see that trend continuing. Now we're going to get into the women. I'm going to try and zoom through these because I don't want to be on them long. I kind of want to get to the meat of what I want to talk about. So the first Batgirl actually ended up being Commissioner Gordon's daughter. Now she took on that role. She's very knowledgeable. She learned martial arts at a young age. She's able to read people, so she can't really be deceived, as well as she's skilled in hacking. So with that being the case, that's where she shows herself to be a very valuable part of the team. I guess you could say that stems from seeing her father do all of that he did, but never going above and beyond in a sense, but always seeing Batman do that above and beyond thing led to her wanting to be able to do that and more for her community, for the city of Gotham, basically. But she was one that was involved in, I think it's called The Killing Joke. I think that's the name of the what comic that comes from, where Joker comes in. Joker is very involved in the Bat family self-destruction, by the way. So he comes in and he ends up, and to take Commissioner Gordon and drive him mad, he ends up shooting Commissioner Gordon's daughter, the first Batgirl, and she becomes paralyzed. Now, she does segue into becoming what's known as Oracle, which is navigating the computer system and monitoring things. One, she somewhat did it for Batman, being able to watch out for crime from a technological standpoint, cameras and all that stuff. But she also ended up doing it for a group of female hero vigilante women known as the Birds of Prey. Now, if any of you have seen the Birds of Prey movie, I personally think, since they did not put her in it, spoiler alert, they should at least include her if they do more future work for Birds of Prey. So she was very valuable. She's very important. But one thing did happen when the New 52 came out for DC Comics. She was retconned and brought back as if she had her legs again, so she took up the mantle of Batgirl once again. Now, there are a couple of other Batgirls to go into. You have one, her name is known as she is, spoiler, who is Stephanie Brown. You have Cassandra Cain, who was trained to be an assassin, trained in an assassin family, but of course taken in by Batman, learning how to redirect those abilities, because even though she was able to kill on a highly skilled level, she was emotionally impacted by her kills. So that's where that change took place for her. So she took up the Batgirl mantle, but after that she kind of shifted and became her own character. She became known as Orphan. And with her becoming Orphan, she did that because her father used to call her Orphan, the father who trained her to even be an assassin in the first place. So she took on that name. Now, when she gave up the Batgirl mantle, she shifted to giving the Batgirl mantle to someone by the name of, I think it was, her last name is Kane. I know that much, but she took on the Batgirl mantle. Now, she was someone that was discharged from the military due to her sexual orientation, but she was very skilled in from a military aspect. She had a lot of survival instincts, as well as from what she did learn from being a part of the military, made her strong from the standpoint of being able to strategize. So that's where she became a skillful part of the Bat family as well, and that's where we have all the Batgirls. Now, someone who's very significant as well to not forget is, oh Lord Jesus, I forgot the boy's name. I think it's Dwayne, but I could be very wrong. I could be very wrong about that. Someone's going to get me for this. If any of my friends see this, forgive me. I forget the boy's name. Batman's son. The son of Batman is also the grandson to Ra's al Ghul, because, of course, Batman got it on with the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. So now his actual son was trained up to be a full-fledged assassin. Like, he was taught to kill. He knows how to kill. He doesn't hesitate. He's quick to do it. And so that brings in that Jason Todd aspect with the son here, because now he is willing to kill where the father isn't. So Batman's trying to mold him and teach him, get out of the mindset of needing to kill. And he's still trying to grasp and understand that. And they have instances where he is, but at the same time, it's not that he has forgotten what he is capable of. So that's all. He's also a Robin as well. But they brought him in more so, not necessarily for the Bat family, but I think they actually made him to go in with Jonathan Kent, who is the son of Superman. Long story there. I really don't want to get into that. We can get into the Superman family at some point, but that's one thing to recognize. I think they brought him in because Superman had his son. So we got his son and we got Batman's son. So they have the relationship just like their fathers do. So I think that was the purpose of that. But the reason I wanted to talk about this the most is because if you ever seen my video prior where I was talking about the Heroes, Villains, and Civilians series, and then at the end we have Passing the Mantle, this really speaks to all of that, because we have so many different people that joined up with Batman, but each of them are like a characteristic of Batman taken from him that led to him even being able to take all of these people in and to be able to teach them. So that's something that's so important, because when we think about this from a biblical standpoint, we all stem from God and who he is. We all represent him. That's why in Genesis they say we're made from the image of God. But a lot of us are, as individual as we are, we take on very important aspects of God and we bring that to life in the world. We carry that on in the world. You have you have Dick Grayson, who's taking on that very obedient son perspective, doing everything that Batman has taught him and then becoming his own. So that's the traditional lineup of going from being a civilian to taking on to learning from a hero, to taking on the mantle of heroism and becoming a hero yourself. He truly embodies that, right? So then you get into where another way that Dick Grayson relates to him is the family loss. He lost his family at a young age, so instead of Dick Grayson being destroyed by that, he's taken in by Batman to be uplifted through it. So that's something significant there. And then you get into Jason Todd being that kid that was thieving and robbing people. You have great skills, let me take it and teach you how to use it. Just like Batman has great riches and things at his availability to use, let me teach you how to also use what's available to you, right? So that's something that's very empowering too. So if you feel like you're in a position where you can't do and become greater and do better, and look, Jason Todd is a good illustration of finding someone that will take you in and teach you, and you being teachable so that you can become someone that is greater. Now, an upcoming tragedy could lead you to disagreeing with what you have been taught, which is what does happen. But at the same time, you never forget some of those values, right? So although Jason Todd's willing to kill, you won't always see him commit a headshot from the jump. So just keep that in mind too. I don't want to be able to hit on everybody, because I'm not going to be able to hit on everybody. There's so many people. But then you even got Tim Drake. What it's like to be that rich kid and have all of these things at your disposal. You may be rich, but you have to be mindful of what you can do with those things. So you have to not only have the riches, know how to use the riches. So that's something that Tim Drake can take from Batman, is I have access to all of these things. How I can be smart enough to use all of these things, right? So he's got to be able to manage everything, even though he still has his parents. He's not going to be able to be coddled and babied. He needs to step up, right? So that's something valuable about Tim Drake. Batgirl, the first Batgirl, like I said, she witnessing all of these things take place from being the child of someone that could make a difference, right? And not being able to make the biggest of differences. Let me join up with the one that can make a huge difference. You'll notice that that's what's going to happen even in your life, is that you're going to be someone that's going to demonstrate for someone how to be a difference maker. And those people are going to watch you and want to be a difference maker as well. And that continues out even with the other Batgirls and Batwomen that steps into the role. They all harness that, that core martial arts, the detectivism, but they all have these aspects that they look to Batman as that father figure, that leader, that person that they want to learn from. But even from learning from him, they want to become something of their own. So that's something that's truly powerful. The other three people I forgot. There's one known as Spoiler. That's Stephanie Brown. She was a Batgirl, but she became known as the Spoiler because her father was a villain and she wanted to ruin his plans. Then you have Huntress. Huntress, her family was killed off. They were a rich family, of course, but they were killed off, and she was trained in assassinhood and how to, fight. So she's a female version of Jason Todd, somewhat. And what I mean by that is willing to kill to do heroic things, while Batman isn't, right? So that's where that comes from. She did step into the Batgirl role, but because of fallout with Batman, she ended up having to separate and going back into her Huntress role. Now, the other surprising piece, and I'm going to end here, the most surprising addition to the Bat family is Clayface. Clayface is in the Bat family. Did any of you guys know about this? I just wanted to make sure you know. Clayface is in the Bat family. He's a dude that can transform clay, mold it into, it's his body. And he can make any weapon, he can shapeshift, he can use it, however he wants. He can even kind of, hide himself. You could think you've done defeated him. He's gone off and become something else. I've seen so many different evil things he was capable of doing. Being Clayface, he turned into a kid and ran off after making people believe he died. He was actually some little kid that was sitting in the crowd, and he survived. So it was really trippy. But something happened to where they realized that it was a mental issue that he was dealing with, the mutation that happened to him that made him Clayface. It impacted him psychologically, so he was very unstable. But they were able to work with him to get him to a place to where he was mentally stable, and so he ended up being able to contribute to the Bat family. So that's where Clayface comes in there. Well, thank you guys for checking me out. I do hope y'all got to listen to this, and I hope getting this new aspect to the Bat family and what they mean to Batman even really speaks to that value. I'll also be making sure to tag in all 3 videos from the Heroes, Villains, and Civilian series, all 4, because you got the passing mantle. So I'll include all 4 videos in this. Thank you guys. Have a blessed day. Hit subscribe and hit a like. Thank you.